Hi everyone, it's Katie from Chords Records. Welcome back to my channel. MJ Lenderman, is he the new Neil Young? So many think he is, and in fact, if you love Neil Young, you will love MJ Lenderman. I can't believe there are so many people that don't know him yet. We went to see him at the Sydney Opera House last weekend, and it was a stunning show. It was their biggest show of their young career, of him and his band The Wind, of their they not supporting anyone. They were the main act. It was the biggest show of their career, and it's their first solo solo tour, and it was absolutely stunning. Sold out the Sydney Opera House, and people were there to take it all in. If you don't know him, he had a stunning album called Manning Fireworks in 2024, which was the list in the top 10 of so many reputable music publications: Pitchfork, Rolling Stone, New York Times, The New Yorker, The Guardian, etc., etc. So many had them at number one, this album at number one for the year of 2024, and for the most part in the top 10. It was an absolute masterpiece. So that was his absolute, his kind of coming of age, shall we say. He made it when he was 25, and it was just an outstanding album. I'll talk more about this in a minute, but I'll go back just to give you a sense of, this isn't a documentary or anything, really just, he's only had 4 or 5 albums. And if you don't know him, I just want to give you a kind of a rounded view of who he is, where he's come from. Please check out his music if you haven't. And if you really love that old 70s or early 70s, Neil Young, Harvest, Against the Gold Rush, etc., he comes from that tradition of great storytelling and small observational moments, the minutiae of life. Really fantastic. He's wickedly funny, and as he has the perspective of a young man. It's a very male dominant perspective, as you would expect. So where does he come from? He originated in North Carolina. He's from North Carolina, Asheville, which seems to be quite a vibrant music scene. And while growing up there in his late teens, he met up with Carly Hartzman from the band Wednesday, and she invited him to join the band, tour, record with the band. And while he was doing that, we're talking 2019, he also started writing his own music and decided to release a self-titled debut album, which was this one, which is his first album. You can still get it in reissue. It's a fantastic album. It's a young man's album, but it does foretell what's to come. There are some beautiful songs on here. I think this is a reissue. This is a gatefold. That's him back in the day when he was a 19 or 20-year-old. And I'm just going to read you some lyrics just to give you an example. As a 19 or 20-year-old, this is the kind of music, the lyrics he's writing. So this is from a song called Southern Birds. Outside my room, I can hear the wind. In it, useless or a shadow. And he's very clever in that he doesn't do a lot of typical verse, chorus, bridge, etc. He's quite interesting in his song structure, and particularly his phrasing, which is very Neil Young-like. The other artist that he's been likened to, if you're familiar with Songs O Higher, Jason Molina. A lot of people have compared him to that, but I believe he's quite different from that. He definitely has the similar kind of lo-fi singing voice, but from a lyrical point of view, I think he's probably closer to Neil Young. If you need to, he's his own artist, but just if you needed to kind of place him in the canon of music. So that was his debut album. And then COVID, he was touring with the band Wednesday with Carly Hartzman, as I said, and then COVID hit. And so he was stuck at home, as we all were during those awful years, and so much interesting music has come out of that era. So it's 5 years ago now. And he wrote an album called Ghost of Your Guitar Solo. So this was his second independently released album, but at this stage he hasn't been signed to a record label. He's just doing his own music, touring with the band Wednesday. And while this album probably needed a bit of an edit, there was no song less than 4 minutes, and most of them were 6, 7, or 8 minutes. This album completely changed, and he has songs on here which are 1.5 minutes. They're just these little drops in the ocean of life, like just little moments of observation. And I'll read you a very kind of deadpan, funny lyric from it, from a song called Someone Get the Grill Out of the Rain. And the lyric is, "It's such a bust, that grill should rust. Precious memories are the ones that suck and just can't get enough." His lyrics are very funny and deadpan, as I said, but they always just at some point stab you in the heart. And I'm not the target audience for his music, and probably a lot of my viewers aren't. But the beautiful thing about music is anyone can come to music if it's good enough. And I love this music, and I think you will too if you like good indie rock, if you like indie folk, if you like Americana, if you like the likes of Neil Young. So then he released this album, and he was getting more success, and he was signed to Dear Life Records. And this was his third album called Boat Songs. And this is the album that really started people noticing, sitting up and going, this guy is really, really interesting. Look at that beautiful cover. It's like a negative skeleton version of a man on a motorcycle, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And I'm going to pause here. I'm going to find out who the photographer is because I want to credit them. Okay, I've found out that's the inner sleeve of Boat Songs, and it says here the album art by Andrew James, layout by John Samuels of Dear Life Records. So well done, Dear Life Records. And so this album, Boat Songs, this was the album where he's put in a studio for the first time. So the first two albums were very self-produced and released, and you can hear they're kind of lo-fi. You put this album on, you can immediately tell he's in a professional studio, almost to its detriment. It was almost too much. It was almost like they were a bit excited to get him in there. And it went a bit too, for my liking, a little bit too commercial. I mean, it's another great album of lyrics. And I have to say, they did sing a few of these songs at the Sydney Opera House last weekend. But there's a beautiful song on here called Under Control. And the lyrics are, "Can't say I didn't know, but sometimes you get so alone. I'd always see the corner and still I stubbed my toe. Can't say I didn't know." And I'm not sure what that's about. I think it might be about drinking, not sure. A lot of there's alcohol kind of weaves through a lot of his songs. There's kind of like a young man sort of coming of age, discovering alcohol, life on the road, and drinking a lot or drinking too much. There's a certain sadness in a lot of his lyrics. He's very self-aware about everything. But this album was the one that everyone sat up and took notice and went, this guy is the real deal. And so then he got signed to a recording contract by Anti. And that album resulted in Manning Fireworks. And as I said at the top of this video, it took the world by storm. The lyrics are absolutely stunning. And in fact, the first 4 lines on this album are: birds against a heavy wind that wins in the end. One of these days, the short's full of sand. One of these days, you'll kill a man for asking a question you don't understand. Oh, God, it's so beautiful. And that's how it starts, and it just gets better and better and better. There's another song on here called Rip Torn, which is has this heartbreaking lyric: you need to learn how to behave in groups, talking about a man or men getting out of control when they're with peers and in groups, drunk and being led astray, and having to, actually be true to who you are really, and be the man you are when you're alone. It's just an absolutely insightful album. And the title track, Manning Fireworks, which opens the album, is, for so long, I thought it was Manning Fireworks, as in Manning was a place, like New York fireworks. But Manning is the actual verb. You're manning fireworks at the end of the pier. And it's about a man who may have seen better days, and you're left to be manning fireworks. It's just such a beautiful song. I can't recommend this album more highly, and I hope you buy it. You buy it from his website. You support him. They're a young band. They're still only 25, and I just love to see them continue in the success they have sampled to date. And then a couple of other related pieces. If you know my videos, I'm a big fan of a record label called Impressed Records. They're a small Australian record label run by a guy called Luke Bevans, and they release limited edition albums, a bit like Blood Records in the UK, usually only 200, 300, 400 numbered. They're always numbered on the Obi strip like this one is. And last year they released Wednesdays, which is the Aligned, the friend of his and the touring band that he's in. In fact, I think he's on this cover. Their album Rat Saw God, which was a huge hit for this band, Wednesday. And Impressed Records released a limited edition of, I think it was like 25. They got hold of a few of the really, really limited ones from Brooklyn Vegan, and released an Australian coloured vinyl version of that. And in breaking news this week, off the back of the Sydney Opera House concert, we were in the car park leaving the venue, and we saw Luke Bevans, the label owner, and gave him a shout out. I buy a lot of records from them, so he kind of knew my name, introduced myself, caught up, and he said there's something special coming. And sure enough, 2 days later, they announced that they would be Impress Records would be releasing their first recorded live album from the Factory Theatre in Sydney of this band Wednesday in February 2024. And what's interesting about that is it's 1 month before MJ Lenderman and Carly Hartzman apparently broke up. And so it'll be the last proper live recording of them playing. He has said, MJ Lenderman has said, as recently as a month ago, that he's still going to record with that band Wednesday, but he's no longer going to tour with them. And I can understand why, because they're no longer a couple. But that's fantastic. But there's one more thing that I want to talk to you about. It was I'll put the picture up here of the record. It's on Bandcamp, and it's the most extraordinary list. I mean, I think there's maybe 120 people on this compilation that supported the flood relief efforts in North Carolina last year. And it's called, I'm just going to look at my notes here, it's called Cardinals at the Window. So you can find it on Bandcamp. It's minimum $10 purchase. It's super cheap. And you get 130 non-released tracks by a cavalcade of amazing artists. Jason Isbell, just so many people. I'm not even going to go through who's on there. But one of them is an unreleased track by MJ Lenderman called Pianos. And they played that song live at the Sydney Opera House last weekend, and it was stunning. And so he introduced us to that compilation album that all money goes to the relief efforts for the floods in North Carolina. And I immediately purchased it, and the whole compilation is just a treasure trove of amazing music and amazing artists. So look that up. All right, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please let me know what you think of MJ Lenderman, if you know him, other artists like him, and if he's coming to your area, make sure you see him live. The band is sensational. I'll pop up a few photos here. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Hi there, I'm back. I just wanted to remind you, Record Store Day is coming up, and MJ Lenderman is actually releasing a limited edition of his live album from 2023, which I'll put a photo of up here. I didn't talk about that, but on April 12th on Record Store Day, it's going to be one of the hits of Record Store Day, so you might want to grab it. Bye.